Justice League Incarnate issue 3, Joshua Williamson writing with like 4 or 5 artists, a lot of them.
Again,
handled very well though, because these are broken up.
Yeah, because it's different universes. So there is kind of like a narrative reason for it to be changing. And this one gets pretty meta, as we'll get into it. Exceptionally meta, actually. So
this is really feeling like a sequel to Multiversity at this point.
Well, we'll go through an order because I feel like I'm just going to get confused if I try and jump around. So,
okay.
So it starts off with because obviously they all get split up into different multiverses, or sorry, different universes in the last issue. So Captain Carrot wakes up, and he's with a bunch of characters, and there's like a Swamp Thing called Spore. There's a Fletch. There's a Vague who's kind of their Wonder Woman, and notably
Calamity.
Yeah, Cal. So Cal Amity as their Superman. Did give me a chuckle. So that sets up where he is. It sets up that Calabac and Grail are, worried about, if Orion survived the fall. Even they're sick of the Batwoman who laughs, who's like sort of around. It sets up nicely as well that Dino Cop comes from the Earth that Captain Carrot ended up in, because they kind of referenced
Earth
him.
41.
So that was a nice touch. I'm kind of rushing through this though, because I feel like the more interesting stuff is elsewhere. So you see where Avery is. She's on the pirate Earth 31.
Yep.
And it kind of sets up at the end of this where she's on the plank, and then the Amazons come in from their invisible blimp.
Love it.
And the Troy of Donna, or Donna of Troy, whatever they're calling her.
Donna of Troy.
She helps Avery get untied, and Avery's like, okay, I'm going to go deal with all these pirates. And then they reference that he's just like your Titans member teammate, Wally Waterwalk. So this is Waterworld.
Their jokes aren't much better either.
Yeah. So, but basically, they get the treasure chest that the pirates had, and inside it is Justice League Incarnate issue 1.
And Infinite Frontier 6.
Yeah, I think there's a couple others in the background, but yeah, the main thing is Justice League Incarnate issue 1, and then it cuts to Earth 33, which is where Calvin and
Superman, Dr. Multiverse
are, and they're in a comic book shop, and he picks up a handful of comics, and you see New Superman issue whatever, and you see the Flashpoint tie-in for the Batman, this Flashpoint Batman stuff. What I like about the detail here is that and I remember this from this comic, the banner at the top advertising the Green Lantern movie is on the cover.
Yeah.
They kept it in. So they're in a universe, and they're not claiming it's our universe. They're saying it's a universe that is surrounded by, was it fictive membrane?
Yeah. This is, so I looked this up. This is meant to be that Earth. This is where Superboy Prime comes from.
Sure.
Now.
That makes sense.
So during the dark multiverse stuff, this is that Earth that he went to.
So this sets up that they're in a world where stories from the others come through, but only as fiction, but also that stuff here can influence the others by being written as fiction. And they decide that the way they're going to deal with everything is to write a comic book to influence and sort of basically send out a message to the others as to where they are. So it says day 1 at the start, and then it cuts to day 7. And apparently time moves differently, so they can be here for a long time, and it doesn't really affect anything. That's fine, right? There is a reference to Superman 3 in this story, where Dr. Midnight says to Calvin, where are we getting this money for this apartment anyway? And they've got like a Brainiac thing working for them. And he says, oh, he got the idea from a Superman movie made here, something about rounding errors. And I popped for this.
I could hear you as I read this. And now we know that the events of Superman 3 are canon within the DC universe.
Yes, they happened. So they actually try living together as a couple for a bit, but it's not going very well. They fight. But what really sort of set off some alarm bells, though, is that Calvin runs into the editor of DC Comics.
An editor.
Well, it's like I said, editor-in-chief. Like they say... Whatever.
Is that what they say? I thought he said he's an editor at DC Comics. Yeah.
Okay,
he's
an editor.
Saxman.
Now, this is genius, like, character design. When it reveals later this is actually Darkseid in disguise, and you look at him and you look at the way he's got this like beard and the way he's receding the hairline, it's like, wait, his facial hair and hair make the shape of Darkseid's helmet. This is amazing.
Yeah. Well, not just that too. His name Ulrich Saxman is Darkseid's, New Earth or New God's name before he was
Hmm.
Darkseid, he was Uxas, Uxas. And so just when I saw that name, I was like, huh, that's not an actual editor, because
Yeah.
I looked, right?
Of course you did.
And I was like, oh, that's Darkseid.
No. So, like, this is the thing, and you see Flashpoint Batman, who's in like the cartoon, like the animal universe, and
he effing hates magic.
Yeah.
And I can just think of Pete. That's all I can think of.
So, but eventually they come up with this story, and they go to the editor, and he's like, "I think for this story, Darkseid has to win," and they're like, "What? No way! What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, this sells issues, but he has to win first." And Avery shows up during all this. And when Avery reveals where things are, where the crack in the multiverse is specifically, that's what everyone's looking for. Because that's back where Captain Carrot is. The editor stands up and starts to transform and says, "Finally, I know," and turns into Darkseid, and they all kind of reach for Avery at the same time. And they end up on the planet, or in the multiverse, where this big fight's happening, with where Captain Carrot is on Earth, whatever number.
41.
41, there you go. I'm going to remember that.
Original Image Comics.
Yeah. So basically, the big monster here is trying to get the crack in time. He actually has it in his hand, one of his many hands. He's got like 6 hands, and in through a portal come like all these characters. You get Darkseid properly in full Darkseid mode, or other characters here. Avery's got Flashpoint Batman with them, and they're all coming in, and they're going for this crack. And again, there was a line here that made me laugh about we need to get that crack off this Earth.
Are we still talking about Darkseid's crack?
Yes.
Yes, Darkseid wants his crack. This is very important. So Darkseid ends up fighting this big monster, and they're going back and forth, and all the rest of it. But basically, Doctor Multiverse basically comes to the point where she says Darkseid has to win, and they're like, "Wait, what? We talking about? What are you talking about?" And it sort of basically implies that there's going to be something much worse if Darkseid doesn't win. And there's some teases here towards the end of like, what member is it? It's the Thunderer dude, who his planet that he came from doesn't exist anymore, right? Like it's all gone. So he made a new home in the House of Heroes, and at the end here we're kind of blindsided because it introduces this big villain that's coming from that Earth. Basically, this entire planet has become the thing, right? This is going to be the destruction of the multiverse or whatever.
The Oblivion Machine.
Yeah. I was enjoying this issue quite a bit for all its meta shenanigans and stuff. This whole big threat at the end they introduced, I felt like came out of nowhere to me, and I was just like, "What is this? What's going on? What is any of this?"
So the Thunderer brings up that his Earth was sacrificed. That's why he went to the House of Heroes. So what Darkseid needs, that Oblivion engine, is the entirety of Earth 7. It's that universe. So I'm sure that's why the House of Heroes was there. That's why Darkseid's forces had converged there. So the Great Darkness is still coming, and it's I would feel like its gateway is Earth 7, and that's what that is. That's why I didn't feel it came out of nowhere.
It felt relatively out of nowhere to me because it was just kind of all this big stuff at the end, and I'm like, I don't feel like I've got enough context for who this big guy is and anything. I was just like, oh, you've kind of like thrown me for a loop here at the end when I was otherwise enjoying the issue up till this point.
It's very Lovecraftian kind of with the creatures and him coming up through the ground and whatnot. But yeah. I enjoyed this issue for everything that it was. Like, again, it felt like a sequel to Multiversity, just with, whereas you can tell Morrison definitely has ideas about string theory at play in Multiversity. Williamson's just like, no, aren't comics great? So it's playing on a different level of Multiversity, but it's playing within those dynamics that I like a whole lot. And again, this is much more my speed, more so than, as much as I loved Multiversity, the whole meta comic here was much more palatable in this sense, as they're, trying to write a comic to get through their friends than the comic being self-aware and whatnot. Like, it's a whole different bag of tricks.
Yeah, the main story with Calvin and Dr. Multiverse, I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed some of the other snippets here or there. But I could have done with a few less of them. Like, I don't know if I needed to have, like, say, the stuff with the ones who were, like, you know, maybe like with Calback and Grail and the others who were on that planet.
Yeah.
You know, Aquaman and stuff. Like, I could have almost done without that plot this issue and just sort of let the rest of it kind of breathe a little bit.
Maybe.
So a bit overstuffed is maybe my...
Yeah, definitely. I would agree there. Although I do love Dr. Batman stuck on the Captain Carrot world just because it's so counter. You know, he's like the darkest version of Batman that we have that's a good guy still. And he's stuck on the cartoon planet. I just thought that was hilarious. And this is his introduction of I effing hate magic as he punches out Feline Faust. That was a whole lot of fun. And I do like the art changes here. I do feel like although Williamson's kind of always done that. When he's had artists, you know, multiple artists, even on his Flash run, he's been able to manage the tone throughout very well. So, but yeah, no, I think I definitely like this more than Pete.
Yeah, you definitely did. I enjoyed large parts of it. I kind of appreciated the ballsiness of some of it. But it definitely feels a bit messy overall. Like, so, you know, I'm still happy to read it, and I'm still, you know, we'll check out the next issue, but I'm definitely not as enthusiastic overall, I'd say. But hey. And the art's a weird thing to judge, because it's like there's so many artists and there's a reason for the changes, but it still ultimately feels really all over the place and adds to the overstuffedness of the whole thing. So it's hard to judge that on that its own merits. But anyway, what are you giving it, Matt?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to just slide to about 7 for me on this one. So some faults, but I did enjoy enough of it that I'm still happy to be reading it.